Okay, so thank you very much for that introduction, Neil. So as Neil said, my name is Sheridan Thomas. I'm a research midwife and a professional midwifery advocate who works alongside various trusts in the Northwest to improve cultural safety and service provision and to audit outcomes for Black, Asian and ethnically diverse service users. And I'm joined by Alicia.
Trying to remember how to unmute myself. I'm really pleased and honoured to be presenting with you tonight, Sheridan. My name is Alicia Burnett. As Neil mentioned, I'm a student midwife based in London, and I'm also the editor-in-chief of the Student Midwife.
Thank you very much. So we are very happy to be here today to present to you and to introduce you to the Safer Together e-learning modules. As Neil said, you know, they are an introduction to culture, race, and bias in midwifery practice, and they've been commissioned. You know, we've worked together with All for Maternity to create these e-learning modules. So a bit of an overview of what we're going to talk to you about today. Just to give you an introduction as to what the modules are, the topics that are covered on the module, why it is that these modules were called for and needed and are long overdue, really, in midwifery practice, who has access to the modules and where you can find them, who's been involved in creating them, what's next after these modules, and we will give you a student midwife update also. So what are the Safer Together e-learning modules? So in response to the inequalities that we know Black, Asian and ethnically diverse women face in the UK, and you know that the inequalities also affect their families and the wider communities, All for Maternity has commissioned a committee of representative professionals that are of the beneficiary group to develop 2 e-learning modules. The concept behind the modules was to promote an understanding and to give students that, you know, as we are all students when accessing e-learning, an understanding as to how we can improve maternity care for women and birthing people from some of the most marginalised ethnic communities. The idea behind the modules are that they are solution focused and they're designed to support learners to explore strategies that they can use in their day-to-day interactions with service users to improve pregnancy outcomes. You know, we look at what it means to be anti-racist and actually look at the disparities that exist within maternity care for women and families from Black, Asian and ethnically diverse backgrounds. So in terms of the topics that the modules cover, really the modules were designed to be an introduction into cultural safety. You know, we understand that there are limitations with presenting information like this in an e-learning package. The modules are really intended to be an introduction, and actually, you know, people are supported and encouraged to go on to do further work within their organisations, to go on to do further personal reflective work, and to go on to actually undertake further formal cultural safety training. But the modules are just an introduction and an overview into the current issues and the current racial disparities that exist within our maternity system. And so it is really important that this is just the start of the journey really for people, and that more work definitely needs to be done, because as professionals, any of us that have you know, contact and access to pregnant people and their families and people who've just had babies in their families, we have a responsibility and a duty of care to ensure that we are doing everything we can to reduce the disproportionate rates of mortality and morbidity that are experienced by these communities. So an overview of some of the topics, and we will include a link, won't we, so you can access more information, but it's an awareness of the key terms, because in order to have meaningful conversations about race and the social constructs that surround that, we need to have an understanding of the basic key terms. We look at key terms in terms of what does systemic racism mean, what does it mean to be anti-racist, to develop an understanding of how cultural safety can be applied to healthcare settings and what does it mean for our practice to be culturally safe. We explore the concept of allyship and advocacy and how we can work towards these principles to reduce the disparities that currently exist. And, you know, just really trying to gain an understanding of the barriers that exist that people face when accessing midwifery care, and sometimes how, as professionals, we are sometimes complicit in perpetrating those barriers, and actually what we need to do to start to deconstruct those barriers and actually make maternity provision accessible and inclusive for everybody. And there's a brief overview of strategies that can be implemented to challenge discriminatory practice. And it's also really important to look at how we can decolonise clinical policies and guidelines. You know, and as we said, it's very much so an introduction, that the work that needs to be done goes far beyond this. But for many people, this is sometimes, you know, they're hearing this information for the first time. And so we were very mindful of that, weren't we, when we were developing the modules. We wanted to make sure that they were accessible to everybody, but that we touched on the main key aspects that we know from the research does make an improvement to the care provision for Black women, Asian and ethnically diverse women. So in terms of why we need the e-learning modules, so you know, it's very much widely common knowledge within maternity care now that the Embrace reports have consistently identified that there are disproportionate morbidity and mortality rates amongst Black, Asian and ethnically diverse women in the UK. But, you know, it's important to note that this is not new information. You know, we've heard this information from many of the Embrace reports, the CMACE reports, and actually racial disparities existing within maternity care, and having access to that information goes as far back as the Change in Childbirth report. And, you know, whilst Embrace focuses on maternal mortality rates and highlights that, you know, Black women at a fourfold now increased risk of mortality and Asian women, you know, 3 times increased risk of mortality, it's looking at the fact that, you know, there's not just mortality that they experience disproportionate rates of. So from the research and the literature base that we have, we know that women and families from these groups are more likely to experience higher rates of morbidity. And we know that they're not only just at increased risks of having poorer health outcomes and increased mortality rates, but so are their babies. We know that they're at increased risk of experiencing stillbirth, you know, increased risk of experiencing a small for gestational age baby, low birth weight. You know, for example, Black women are twice as likely to experience a preterm birth. And so we need to look at the care that we're providing. From the research that we have, we know that actually social deprivation for a long time has been highlighted as a potential cause, but actually what we now know is that, you know, education status, affluence is not a protective factor for women from Black heritage or, you know, from Asian backgrounds. Actually, what we know is that these women are at increased risk, and we currently have no protective factors in place in our maternity system to mitigate this risk. And so the modules really are that introduction and a call to action. We know that not only if we're looking at outcomes that that these women and families have, we also know that they're much more likely to have poorer experiences of maternity care. You know, I work alongside my colleague Georgia Allen, and as research midwives, from the data that we look at, what we find is that not only do people report poorer experiences of maternity care, but common themes are very much that when concerns are escalated, they're not listened to by their care providers, that actually they're negatively impacted by the unconscious biases of healthcare professionals, which can manifest in racial stereotyping, not receiving pain relief. And actually all of this has a direct knock-on effect into the outcomes then that we see in the embrace reports. And so, as I said, the modules really were created as a starting point, really, and a call for action. So that for those of us that are involved in maternity care, so, you know, whichever way you have access and direct contact with people, whether, you know, accessing maternity care, that we can start to do the work necessary to improve service provision. So in terms of who the modules are intended for, they're intended for anybody who has access to, who has access or direct contact with pregnant women, birthing people, people in the postnatal period, and families who are planning to conceive, who have recently conceived, and who've just had babies, you know, along the whole of the maternity spectrum. This is not just, you know, targeted for midwives. It's also, you know, the idea that it's open for student midwives, maternity support workers, our obstetric colleagues. You know, it's really important that we take an integrative approach to tackling systemic racism and the biases that actually exist within maternity care. And we definitely need to work together, you know, in this anti-racist work. And so Alicia is going to discuss how everybody can access the modules. But it really is about us taking a joint approach at all different aspects of the maternity system, really. Alicia, do you? So.
Okay, over to you, Alicia. And if anybody wants to ask questions and things later on, they can do. So, Alicia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sheridan. I'm just going to start really by just going back briefly to some of the points that Sheridan touched upon. When Sheena Byron approached me about being involved in these e-learning modules, I thought, Sheena, I'm a student. What do I know about creating e-learning modules? I do e-learning modules. I undertake them. I don't have anything to do with creating them, but actually that should change, because I think students should have more input into their programs of education. So I thought, oh, let's just go for it. I'm always well supported by All for Maternity, so let's give it a go. Firstly, the modules were funded by the National Lottery Community Fund, and they're co-produced by the White Ribbon Alliance UK and All for Maternity. Next slide, please, Sheridan. These are the people that were involved in the production of these two e-learning modules. I'm going to mention each of you because each and every single one of you have been instrumental in the production of these modules. Let's start with Beanish. I remember Sheena. Let's start with Kay, actually. So Kay King, she's a new addition to our team at All for Maternity. Kay was instrumental in securing the funding for these e-learning modules. So initially, Sheena raised the idea to me, would you like to be involved? And I said, okay, is there any funding for it yet? No, not yet. So okay, I've got time. And then Kay secured the funding and I was like, oh, this is happening. So Kay, thank you so much for that. Let's move on to Beanish. I was then asked, so who do you want to be involved in the production of these e-learning modules? And my first thought was that I wanted the people involved in the production to be part of the beneficiary group of these e-learning modules. So Black and brown people, I wanted Black and brown people to be involved in their production because we come from the groups that are being affected by these health disparities. Beanish, if you don't know Beanish, you need to know Beanish. Beanish is everywhere doing all the things all the time, so busy. She's a band 7 midwife. She still works clinically and she still manages to do all the things everywhere. She's like a rock star. When you do enroll onto the e-learning modules, you see a lot of Beanish. I've already explained my bit in the e-learning module production. Sheridan and Georgia. The next, literally, Beanish, Sheridan and Georgia, I knew I wanted their involvement. Sheridan and Georgia, I became aware of them both as MyMidwivesUK last year, and I was absolutely blown away because it's only within the last year and a half that I became aware of the health disparities affecting Black and brown women in the UK. It's not a fact that I've grown up with, irrespective of the fact that it's been going on for decades. It's not a fact that I was aware of. And then I learned about the work they've been doing, going to different trusts, different maternity units, and trying to unpick the situation that has been ongoing. 2 more rock stars for you to know about. Let's move on to Sheena. So Sheena is the person that came to me with the proposal to be involved in leading on these e-learning modules. Sheena believes that I can do anything, even when I don't believe it myself.
Because you can.
Sheena's a powerhouse, as you all know. Anna Horn. Anna was kind enough to volunteer her time to actually watch every single video for the e-learning modules and tell us what she thought. She's really honest. She's really knowledgeable. She's just lovely, really lovely, a great person to know. And she told us, you need to add this, this, and this. What does this mean? And she really helped us to grow the e-learning modules and to make them better. And then we have Anna Byron. Anna Byron, what can I say? Anna has an eye for design. She has an eye for what works and what doesn't work. I remember when I was selecting imagery for the e-learning modules, initially I went to Shutterstock and I picked some imagery that I thought would fit with the e-learning modules. And I took one look and was like, no, this isn't us. This isn't all for maternity. So what I did was I went through the Practicing Midwife, all of the beautiful illustrations that you see in the Practicing Midwife on the cover and the spot images for the articles are designed by a wondrous illustrator named Lauren Rebeck. So I looked through all of Lauren's images for the past year and the past year of the issues of the Practicing Midwife, and I handpicked the images, Lauren's images, to go with the e-learning modules, and that is what made these modules us. We aren't Shutterstock people, not really. We're quite quirky, creative, and our images are very vivid and they bring topics to life. So and Anna, I remember I wasn't very well for a while, and the time was coming close to us having to publish the e-learning modules, time for them to go live, and I was struggling because I'm in my 3rd year, final block of placement, getting my book signed off, getting everything signed off so I can join the NMC register, and I was sweating. And Anna came from I don't know where and rescued me. She rescued me, gave me all the support that I needed. Anna, Kay, Sheena, all of you, you're amazing people. Thank you so much. This wouldn't have been possible without you, every single one of you. So yeah, that's my gushing over with. Next slide, please, Sheridan. Okay. Let's go back to that last slide.
Okay.
So there are 2 ways for you to access these e-learning modules. This slide relates to a method that isn't quite ready yet, but when it is ready, we'll let you know via social media, and all you'll need to do is scan this QR code. It's not accessible just yet, but we have things set up so that they will be very, very soon. This is a way for you to access the e-learning modules for free. anyone can access them, parents, expectant parents, midwives, doulas, student midwives, aspiring student midwives, anybody, because All for Birth is a website that is for everybody, open access for absolutely everybody, but not ready just yet. Okay. Fab. Okay, the second way that you can access the e-learning modules is via the All for Maternity website. To do this, you need to be a subscribed member. So you need to subscribe to All for Maternity. So literally go to www.allformaternity.com. There's a really easy, really accessible website. So go to info. That will bring down a drop-down menu. Go to plans and pricing. There are plans there for individuals, institutions, student midwives, MSWs, doulas. There's even an additional site for international users that is only accessible to international users. So if you're in the UK, it won't work for you, but if you're in Rwanda, Zambia, anywhere else in the world, it will work for you. And you can find out what plans and pricing schemes are available for you in your country. So once you're subscribed, go to learning, and then on the drop-down menu, go to modules. And I've just taken a screenshot of it here. They're right at the very, very top. So you've got both of the Safer Together modules right here at the top. They're very distinctive. As I said, Lauren's imagery is very eye-catching and distinctive, so you cannot mistake them for anything else. So you've got module 1 and module 2 just sitting there right at the top for you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we've made these e-learning modules. What next? Are they just going to sit there? We've got plans for them. So we have plans to turn these e-learning modules to integrate them into an ebook, an open access ebook. This work is currently underway. In the Practicing Midwife, Claire Feely, who is the editor-in-chief of the Practicing Midwife, Wondrous Women Again, she's been running a series called Race Matters. This was all throughout 2020. I think it concluded February 2021. So all of those articles are open access anyway, but they're also going to be integrated into this ebook, which is on the way. Now, this next bit I have notes for, because I don't want to get anything wrong. Okay, so the local maternity system for Lancashire and South Cumbria, they're developing a cultural safety toolkit. And these e-learning modules will form part of this toolkit. I'm just going to tell you a bit more about this fantastic project. Okie doke. So this will be based on local Lancashire and South Cumbria research that is being undertaken with the local community. A survey, community engagement events and interviews to understand the experiences, preferences and mental health needs of women, people that use the maternity service from minority ethnic communities. This project is funded by NHSI and the local maternity system. It will build on the All for Maternity e-learning modules, so the Safer Together e-learning modules, and will be offered alongside the free workbook that I just mentioned and the Racism Matters series. So basically, the ebook I just mentioned is going to be integrated into this project that I'm telling you about now. It's called the Enable Research Study, and it's being led by Professor Jill Thompson and the main research hub, which is linked to the Thrive Research Centre. The research team has representatives from the group we are aiming to reach with the research. The aims, objectives, and design of the study has been developed with PPI from the communities the research aims to reach. This message is brought to you courtesy of Anna Byron. Thank you so much, Anna. One more thing that I would like to ask of anyone that does access these eLearn modules is that we are very much open to feedback. If you feel that anything is missing, so if there have been any oversights on our part, if you would like just to give your feedback, did you enjoy the modules? How did you find them? How did you find the imagery? Basically, any of your thoughts, we are very welcome to listen to. So please send your feedback to info@allformaternity.com. There's one other thing I'd like to mention, actually. Sheridan mentioned earlier about who these eLearn modules are for. They're for, as Sheridan said, anyone that has access to pregnant people and pregnant women and anyone that's having or has had a baby. That includes not just learners like myself, students, but heads of midwifery, directors of midwifery, obstetricians, anyone, any professional at all that has any engagement with pregnant people should access these eLearn modules, because I'm just going to be honest. I find that when these conversations are being had about the disparities faced by Black and brown women and birthing people, there tends to be defensiveness. And that defensiveness can come from a place of, I've never even thought about that. How dare you think that I would ever behave in this way? And it comes from a place of never having sat down and actually thought about these issues before. It's very easy to be very comfortable and unaware of something if it's never been brought to your attention. It's easy to walk around thinking that you're doing the best possible job by everybody that you meet if you're not confronted with the facts and the statistics. And in the past year especially, we have been very much so confronted with the statistics. You cannot escape the statistics. They're being debated in Parliament. You have 5 times more. You have Sheridan in Georgia. You have me. You have Mars Lord. You cannot escape the reality of what is happening. However, there is a lack of education about these statistics and these outcomes. So we are graduating and registering as midwives without ever having been confronted with these statistics. So sometimes, as Sheridan said earlier, this is the very first time you've ever heard about any of this. So I really do recommend that everybody that has access to pregnant people that have just had a baby, access these eLearn modules. Start here. It's an introduction. We've given you resources to follow up with. So we've given you access links to the open access articles in the Practicing Midwife from the Racism Matters series. We've given you links to workshops. Start with these modules, follow up with the resources, and keep going. Don't stop here. Don't complete these e-learning modules, print your certificate and think, I'm done, because the work doesn't stop. Rant over. Next slide, please, Sheridan. Okay, so we've talked to you about these eLearn modules. I'm editor-in-chief of the Student Midwife, so of course I can't come on to Midwifery Hour and not talk about the Student Midwife. Our April issue is out now. It came out on the 15th of April. And I'm literally here. If you want to access the Student Midwife, you need to be subscribed. Again, go to www.allformaternity.com, go to our journals, drop-down menu comes up, the Student Midwife, and that is how you find it. It's online only, so you can only access it via the All for Maternity website. We have an open access article this month. The title of the article is Gender Identity, Student Midwifery Beyond the Binary, authored by Ash Bainbridge and Rowan March. Fantastic article. I would very much recommend that you have a read and share it. And our social media is here in the bottom, our Instagram and our Twitter, so give us a follow.
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.